final regular season for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and who would have thought it would be Leafs-Sens who's been the top story throughout. We will discuss Mr. Shen, as well as young Mr. Tim Stapleton, who scored the tying goal to get the Toronto Marlies into the playoffs last night, and tonight he gets rewarded with a spot with the big club. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Molson Canadian Leaf Nation pregame show presented by Tim Hortons. I'm Jody Vance, along with Joe Bowen, who will have the call tonight on AM 640 Toronto Radio at 7 o'clock. Marlies captain turned hockey analyst Mark Morrow is with us as always, and our senior reporter.
Yeah, reportero.
There you go.
Oh,
Paul
good.
Henrik, thank you for being here as always.
You're Ukrainian.
You know what? There's a lot of people talking about this being the final regular season game and the fact that these two teams, the Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs, are not playoff bound. But you know, whenever the Battle of Ontario goes down, there is definitely reason to get up for this game, especially on a Saturday night in Toronto. Let's get started. Headlines brought to you by Ford, powered by you. Paul?
Jody, always headlines when the Leafs play. Headline number one, making final impressions for all these players heading toward next season. Headline number two, Martin Gerber. He's hoping for a strong finish here tonight. And headline number three, from an Ottawa perspective, committed to Clouston. They've extended their head coach by another couple of years. So, Joe, what are the implications of this game, at least in small part, for the players heading toward next season?
Well, Paul, there's no question that they're getting an opportunity to make a final impression, and a lot of them have been given ample opportunity to do just that through the last half of the season. People like Christian Hansen. Now you got Tim Stapleton. Nice move on the part of the organization. Scores a big goal to get the Marlies into the playoffs, and let's reward him not only with an opportunity to play in this game, but that brings along a little extra cabbage, as you well know, Mark, on how that all works on a per-game basis. But they've all had an opportunity to make an impression. And there are going to be a lot of changes between now and next year when this team reconvenes in September and October to get what they hope will be a run towards a playoff position. So everybody's getting an opportunity now. Whether it's enough of an opportunity, we'll wait and see.
Well, it will be Ron Wilson's first non-playoff year dating back to 2003, and the Toronto head coach sees a lasting value in making a lasting impression here tonight.
That's what you tell all your players. It's part of the motivation for a game that really doesn't mean anything for either team.
Ron, more than probably in past seasons, but do you have a sense right now that you probably won't be coaching a lot of these guys next year? Does that mean anything to you at this point?
Well, that's hard for me to say. I have to assume that. Some of the older guys probably logically wouldn't be back. But I guess in general I have a fairly good idea who'd be back, but you don't know until we get through the draft and see what happens, free agency. It's way too early to tell.
You meet with every player, you talk to them, or is it a group thing? What do you do?
No, we've talked to the team as a group about certain things so that I don't have to repeat myself in exit meetings, but on Monday morning the players will have physicals, and then I'll sit down and talk to everybody for a few minutes. You spend all year communicating with the players, and you just making sure they understand what they have to do in the summertime and their conditioning programs. Go over briefly anything that you might have failed to mention to the player and what he's got to think about over the summertime if he wants to help our team next year.
Mark Morrow, it's been a great year for a core group of individuals on this team.
We're having a look at a couple of them here. Alexei Ponikarovsky, since the trade deadline especially, has been simply on fire. 21 points in 17 games as he sort of reestablished himself as a key member of this team moving forward in management's eyes. A lot of people thought when Nick Antropov left, that would be the end of Alexei Ponikarovsky. He's done just the opposite. Matt Stajan setting a career high in points. And, of course, you can't talk enough about Luke Schenn. This is a kid that we didn't know if he'd last beyond 10 games and then what it would be like as each stage of the season went. But he matured and he developed and he became better as each one of those stages came along and passed every single test.
Joe, the Maple Leaf coaching staff bring passion to what they do each and every night, each and every practice. What do you like about their ability to teach the game to this young team?
Well, I think what they've done very well is break things down and make sure that everything was done as far as educating and teaching, because I think under the circumstances when they were in San Jose, it was a more veteran group, and so you approach the game a little bit differently. But all of the assistant coaches, along with Ron Wilson, have really broken the game down and tried to get them playing a kind of a system. And I think it's been, for the most part, very successful. And the other thing that is about it is that their work ethic has been unquestionably the key part of what has gone on as far as the coaching staff is concerned. I think they have to be very pleased with the way this team, game in and game out, has come to work and done it on a nightly basis. Now, that's something that has to be transposed into next season and make sure that it goes in the right direction, but they've done a marvelous job that way.
Martin Gerber will get the start tonight for the Leafs against his former team, the Ottawa Senators. Motivation enough right there, but Mark Morrow, perhaps the carrot that's being dangled, might be a contract to play for the Leafs next season.
Exactly, and I don't think it matters who was playing against him in this game. This is his final opportunity to earn a contract for next season, albeit it won't be as big as the one he's coming off of, but he has sort of reestablished himself as a capable NHL goaltender. Whether that means he's a number one, I'm not so sure at this point, but definitely a second string option for Vesa Toskala that would not be a huge gap in terms of talent and ability. And I think the fact that it's Ottawa, he's taken the high road with Ottawa throughout. Ever since he came over here, he hasn't said anything negative about that organization. But let's be honest here, anytime you face an old teammate, and especially everything he went through over the last season and a half as a member of those Senators, he really wants to come out and have a big game against them tonight.
Well, Ottawa extended the contract of head coach Corey Clouston on Wednesday, a 2-year extension. He is 19-10-4 since taking over in early February, Joe, and like Ron Wilson, with this young man, it's all about accountability.
It is, and it is kind of interesting because you wonder whether at the conclusion of all of this, with their rather volatile owner, whether someone will be forced to pay for the embarrassment of this team underachieving as badly as it did. Now, Craig Hartsburg ended up taking the fall early on, but is there more to it after this? So that will be interesting, and whether Corey Clouston ends up in a situation, not the least of which was like Pat Quinn and John Ferguson Jr., where the coach was in place when somebody else came in to run the show. Whether that happens or not, that'll be in the meetings that go on with the Ottawa Senators here probably for the remainder of this week. But it is kind of an interesting situation that they would decide now to make this move as far as Clouston is concerned.
Well, with Corey Clouston at the helm, 1-0-1 into his initial foray here in the Battle of Ontario. We spoke with the head coach this morning after practice. He appreciates the significance of closing out the regular season here tonight in Toronto.
Well, there's obviously the built-in rivalry, which should, create some intensity, some emotion in the game. But other than that, I think both teams are looking for the same thing, to finish on a high note, to play well, and build some momentum for next year.
What have you taken from the last couple of months, Corey, in terms of making the jump from the American Hockey League to here, and what you've got to do going forward to training camp next fall?
Well, I think obviously we're disappointed that we didn't make the playoffs. Basically just run out of time. But I think for the most part, we've done what we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to see how good we can be, see where our strengths are, see where our weaknesses are, and move forward and try and, like I said, build momentum, create some momentum for the off season, so our guys come back in the fall understanding what they need to do and to build on that.
Still a lot to cover as we count down to the puck drop, 7 o'clock, of course, between the Ottawa Senators and your Toronto Maple Leafs for this final regular season tilt. Quick break right now, and as we take you there, we'll check in on some Senators who are getting warmed up for tonight, a little footy. And then when we come back, we're going to talk specifically about the first line of defense. That was pretty funny. Whoops. Much more to come on Molson Canadian. Leaf Nation pregame show. One of the nicest guys in hockey, Luke Shen. We'll talk about him next.